Here we are in Unity Crash Course again. We've been doing some UI work, and let's look at a UI element called a scroll view or scroll rect. Sometimes in a game you have a UI element that just is not going to fit on the screen, and you need the ability to scroll more options around like this. Unity gives us something to set that up pretty easy, and let me show you how to do that. Let's start with this little frame that I was showing in a previous video. Let's say that this frame box, it says frame title, has the red and the green button on it. Let's imagine all the content we want to add isn't going to fit. We want to be able to scroll that around. I want the frame itself to remain on screen and not scroll around. What I want to scroll is the content that's on the frame. So let's go to the frame, which is just called image here in this example, and I will go to UI. And I will add a child. I'm going to add a child called a scroll view. That now is the scrollable window with the content. Let's align it to match with the edges of the frame. So like the wood area will be the scroll area. First off, I want to anchor it. I want to anchor to the edges of my parent object, which is the frame. And you'll see that it's going outside. That's because of these offsets. So let's get rid of the offsets. Okay, now it's anchored exactly to the frame. If I ever change the size of the frame, either in script or just in design phase, that will update. But I want the draggable area to not include this outer, like, stone looking frame. I want to just include the wooden part. So I'm going to need to add some offsets here. I usually just type them in, but you can also just drag this corner like so and sort of eyeball it to where you think it looks good. Good. Let's now take the contents of my frame and put it into the scroll area. The scroll area came in as a scroll view, and you'll notice it's got children. It's got a horizontal scroll bar, a vertical scroll bar, and the viewport. Viewport's children contains the content. The content is where you put the stuff you want to scroll around. I'm going to take this text and the two buttons, and I'm going to move them into the content. They are now on that scrollable frame, and we're ready to start. Let's show it in game. Now, just by clicking anywhere in the window and dragging, I can drag that around, and there's some elasticity to it. It sort of wants to pull itself back. You see it's got sort of a limit of where it wants to go. There's also a scroll bar here. But what about this little white haze that I accidentally got? Let's get rid of that white haze. That shows up right here as the image that is on the frame. Boop, 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 boop. You can just turn that off and it's still going to work just fine, isn't it? Yep, there you go. Let's look at some of the other features of this real quick. We have the two scroll bars. The two scroll bars are referenced here on the scroll rect, the horizontal and the vertical, and they are set to auto hide and expand automatically. So we notice that the horizontal one vanished by itself because the system detected that the contents of the screen already fit. But because the contents are sort of pushing the boundaries in the vertical a little bit, the vertical scroll bar appeared. You can actually say, I only want to scroll vertically. So we'll just turn off horizontal scrolling altogether, and now it will only scroll in the vertical direction, like so. And I can't side to side it anymore, only up and down. And what I usually do in that case too is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the horizontal scroll bar. I don't need that. And we'll get rid of it here too. We don't want to leave it missing. I'll just hit delete. So we don't have a horizontal scroll bar. We don't have horizontal scrolling on this. Well, now I notice that the vertical scroll bar doesn't quite line up. Maybe we want to tweak that. Here it is right here. And it's got a bottom offset that it had baked in there because it was making room for the horizontal one. So if I want to get rid of it, there you go. That ought to fix it right up. And you'll see that because the sliding area and the handle are anchored to their parent objects, just resizing this parent slide bar took care of all of that. We can control the images that are on these things. If you want to customize, there's the background image for the scroll bar, and the handle has an image on it as well. The last thing I really want to cover for scroll view is sizing. It came in sort of by default as a 300 pixel tall scroll area. What if you wanted it bigger? Let's just make it bigger. That's where you adjust that. Let's make it 1,000 pixels tall. Boop. And now you may be wondering, hey, why did those buttons move way down to the bottom? That is because in the previous video, we set the buttons to be anchored to the bottom of their parent, and the parent is now the content. So that's how this works. It actually makes it pretty simple to deal with. You imagine then that the content is a rectangle and all the stuff goes inside that content. Let's bring it back. All the stuff that you need to show in total fits inside the rectangle that is that content. You can give it a width, you can give it a height. It's just a rectangle. You lay out all the elements inside there, and then the scroll area lets you move that rectangle around. And the last part then is this part, the viewport, creates a mask, what's called a mask. And let's see, there's a show mask. That is the area that you can see through. It comes in as a rectangle by default. But if you had a different shape frame, like for example, you had a circle, you wanted a circular window there, you could replace this mask graphic with a graphic that represents the shape you want to do. One thing I often like to do is to populate my scroll rect content at runtime instead of here in the editor. So this is an example that I showed earlier. Here's my content, and the only thing in there is this one little selection starburst. Everything else that appears in that window is going to come out of the resources folder. So at startup, I'm going to hit the resources folder and I'm going to load this file. And this will list all the things that I need to put into that folder. That allows me then to just add things to the resources, and I don't have to get in and edit those manually. That's all going to be set up very automatic for me. Then in order to make that work, you may have to, in the script, adjust the size of your rectangle so that the placement of the objects matches with the size of the frame. And here that is when we're all done. I have it set so that there's just a little bit of extra space there at the bottom so that the user understands that that is the bottom of the list. That's a scroll rect. The objects in there are still interactive using the same techniques that we've done before. Those are just buttons. As another example, I have another scroll rect here. This is going side to side, and it looks like, you know what? It looks like the frame here isn't lined up well with the edge. Let's go in and edit that and get that fixed up. What's going wrong here is, and I think you can kind of see that there's a squish happening to the frame that I don't like. Let's fix that squish right here. I'm using this as my image. Go to the sprite editor on that, and what we need is a little bit of a border here. We need to say that that is the edge of the frame. Let's go in and just put that. Now what that's going to do is it's going to tell it, if I try to resize this sprite, I don't want you to resize the outer border. I want you to just stretch the wooden part as needed to fill whatever size I've asked for. And now we get that. It looks like I messed up on the right side. Let's fix that. Yeah, I accidentally grabbed the blue instead of the just the green. Okay, I want just the green here. Yep, that's good. Okay, let's try that. There you go. So now you can see that the wood has been stretched to fill the space. And let's see that in game now. See if I need to adjust the edges of the mask. I think that looks about right. That's a good edge of the mask on that side. That's a good edge of the mask. I like that. I think that works. That's scroll rect, and also in there I showed how you can slice a sprite in the UI when you need to make it stretchable. That's it for today on the Unity Crash Course.